Clash of the Classics.
Welcome to another episode of Clash of the Classics. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Donnie. I'll be your host for the next few minutes. And if you're new to the show, maybe this is the first time you're tuning us in, you're going to find every week we roll the clock back. We either pit two classic cars against one another, or we feature one model in particular. Today we're going to spend some time revisiting the first generation Monte Carlo. We'll look at exterior styling, we take a look at interior stuff, and powertrain design. Then we'll talk about parts of the car that we like best, and as always, we welcome you to let us know what you think. Head on over to our website, horsepoweronline.com, or leave us a message right here on our YouTube channel. These battles are fueled by the largest automatic transmission network in the world. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association, or simply the ATRA. All right, let's talk about that first generation Chevy Monte Carlo. Now, here's a car that doesn't always seem to get the attention it deserves, and there's probably a few reasons for that, but the biggest reason is because its cousin is the mighty Chevelle. That being said, the first-gen Monte Carlo is still a favorite among quite a few people, and it's a car that we see quite a bit at some of the larger Southern California car shows that we attend. To start with, a big V8, great exterior styling, and some NASCAR history are just a few of the things that continue to help make the first-gen Monte Carlo pretty cool more than 4 decades later. And the first-gen series ran from 1970 through 1972 with a base MSRP of about $3,123. And with several options available, there were plenty of choices when it came to engine and powertrain layouts. For the small block 350, there was a 2-speed power glide option, a 3-speed Hydra-Matic, or a 4-speed manual. There was variable ratio power steering, had power windows, air conditioning, there were power seats, rally wheels, bucket seats, center console, full instrumentation, and there were other accessories that were also available. And here's the thing, if you chose to roll with all available options, the price shot up to well over $5,000, which, if you'll recall, was a pretty steep ticket for some folks back in 1970. Engine choices included the 4-barrel carbureted Turbofire 350 small block V8, the Turbofire 400 with a 2-barrel carburetor, and the Turbojet 400 with a 4-barrel carburetor. That was rated at 330 horsepower. The two Chevy 400 V8s offered were actually two different designs. A lot of people may not know that, but the 2-barrel carbureted Turbofire 400 was a small block Chevy V8 engine that was somewhat similar but different internally to the 350. The Turbojet 400 was a slightly enlarged version of the 396 cubic inch big block V8 and had an actual displacement of 402 cubic inches. The most powerful option available was the Monte Carlo SS454. It was packaged and rated at 360 horsepower. It came standard with heavy-duty suspension, had wider tires, the SS454 badging, and an automatic load-leveling rear suspension. The only transmission available for the SS back in those days was the Turbo 400. And that transmission, many of our transmission listeners will remember, the valve body was recalibrated for a more performance-type shift, and the torque converter stall speed was just slightly higher than the stock. And then the price for the SS package was about $500 more and accounted for, check this out, less than 3% of all Monte Carlos sold in 1970. And here's the thing, despite the SS's appeal, it cost more to buy new than the equivalent Chevelle, so it only made up a very small fraction of total Monte Carlo production and was discontinued after 1971, although the 454 engine remained available long after that. And if anyone out there has a true original SS, please message us here at the show. I'd like to have you in studio with us for a future discussion. But nevertheless, Monte Carlos remain bargains that offer more muscle and style per dollar than many of their peers, at least for now. Originally influenced by Pontiac's success with the 1969 Grand Prix, Chevy at that time came up with their own model for the G-body platform and advertised it as a personal luxury coupe. Monte Carlo outsold the rival Ford Thunderbird by about 3-1 in its debut year, despite a labor strike during the early months of 1970. And because of the strike, Chevy produced a little over 159,000 of them. They originally planned to build and sell somewhere near 185,000. During those early months, Monte Carlos were in somewhat short supply, with full-scale production not happening until well into February of 1970. And once full production was underway, Monte Carlos sold well and often at full list price, usually being ordered with many extra cost options, and it made it a very profitable model for Chevrolet and for their dealership network. The only body style available was the two-door hardtop. The Monte Carlo also became an increasingly important presence in NASCAR after factory support for that sport ended in around about 1971. The average values for a number 2 condition or an excellent car of the Monte Carlo remain pretty reasonable, right at about $22,400, and this doesn't include the SS454. But even those cars, the SS454 models, they come in right at about $34,100. You compare that to an LS5 Chevelle SS454, which is almost twice the price at $61,600, and all of a sudden, the SS Monte Carlo seems like a steal. And Monte Carlos are essentially Chevelles underneath, so with an SS454, you're getting pretty much the exact same experience for a whole lot less money. And the SS454 Monte Carlos, beyond that, are pretty rare. They're essentially muscle cars, even though they weren't ever marketed that way. So it's taken a while for them to catch on, but Monte Carlos are on most people's radars these days. While the first-gen Monte Carlo market isn't exactly red hot, and these cars are probably never going to be worth as much as the more famous Chevelle, people are starting to recognize that they're somewhat undervalued and they're great bang for the buck. Before we go any further, I want to talk about the largest automatic transmission network on the planet. They're the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. The ATRA makes our Clash of the Classics possible, and no one knows transmissions better than ATRA. With a member network stretching from coast to coast, there's no better place to be when your car is experiencing transmission troubles than an authorized ATRA service provider. Head on over to atra.com to find a service provider near you. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for hanging out with us here at Horsepower for an Hour. We'll see you next time.